In a dimly lit bunker beneath the ravaged streets of Berlin, Adolf Hitler sat behind his desk, maps and documents scattered around him. The once mighty Führer, now a shadow of his former self, knew that the end was near. Outside, Soviet forces closed in, the sound of artillery reverberating through the walls. His closest associates, including Eva Braun, his loyal secretary Traudl Junge, and his generals, were gathered in the adjacent room, their faces etched with despair. Hitler called for his secretary. "Traudl, take this down," he ordered, his voice devoid of its usual fire. Traudl entered the room with shaking hands, her eyes avoiding the gaze of the man who had commanded an empire. Hitler dictated his final testament, a mix of delusion and denial, blaming the Jews and his generals for Germany's downfall. The room was thick with tension, each word a painful step towards the inevitable. As he finished, he handed the document to Traudl, his hands trembling. "That will be all," he said softly. Eva Braun entered then, her expression resolute despite the dire circumstances. They had been through so much together, and she had chosen to stay by his side to the very end. "It's time," she whispered, in silence. They made their way to the private quarters. The sound of explosions grew louder, the bunker shaking with each impact. Hitler sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the small vial of cyanide in his hand, while Eva prepared her own dose. "For the Reich," she said, her voice steady. He nodded, his eyes hollow. They both took the poison, and moments later, Adolf Hitler, the man who had plunged the world into chaos, lay lifeless beside his devoted companion. Outside, the Soviet troops advanced, unaware that the dictator they sought was already dead. The world above continued to turn, but in that bunker, history had reached a grim conclusion. The war would end, but the scars left by Hitler's tyranny would endure for generations. As the minutes ticked by, those left in the bunker realized their leader was gone. Traudl Junge walked to the exit with a heavy heart, knowing that although the nightmare was over, the road to recovery would be long and fraught with challenges.